Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain the last choices. This movie tells the story of a girl who swears revenge after being brutally assaulted by 3 strangers. When revenge is the only way, she must race against time before the police reveal who she is. Will she succeed in getting revenge on the people who have hurt her and the people she loves? Let's find out in the last choices. The Lost Choices begins by showing a high school girl named Ji-yoon, who is the best shooter in her school. One day, after school, Ji-yoon visits her best friend, a girl named Won-jung. Ji-yoon then showed her best friend the gold medal she had won after winning the national shooting championship. Won-jung looks happy and congratulates her on her success. Ji-yoon then takes Won-jung out to eat with her parents to celebrate her win. However, Won-jung was forced to refuse her friend's invitation because she already had an appointment with her boyfriend at that time. While on a trip with her parents, Ji-yoon sees a group of high school students riding motorbikes recklessly. Ji-yoon doesn't know exactly what happened, but suddenly the car her father was driving had a fatal accident that instantly killed both her parents and left her badly injured, so her vocal cords were damaged by a hard impact and causing Ji-yoon to have trouble speaking. Ji-yoon's happiness and bright future were destroyed due to the fatal accident in one day. She has to live alone and work hard to make a living. Several years after the incident, Ji-yoon now works in a textile factory with Won-jung and rents a small apartment next to Won-jung's. Because of that, Ji-yoon can hear when Won-jung is being molested by her abusive boyfriend, Chang-ba. Feeling sorry for her, Ji-yoon tries to help her best friend, but she gets beaten up instead by Chang-ba, who snaps at her not to interfere in their business. The scene then switches and shows a man named Park who is being billed by a gangster. Park, who is a police detective, apparently took a big risk by borrowing money from gangsters. Meanwhile elsewhere, a policewoman named Kang Za-jim is conducting a raid on a gambling establishment. One night, Ji-yoon suggests to Won-jung to break up with her abusive boyfriend. However, Won-jung persists in continuing her relationship with Chang-ba because, according to her, only Chang-ba wants to accept her as she is. When Ji-yoon was walking alone to go home to her apartment, suddenly she was smothered by a man who intended to rape her. Ji-yoon, who panicked and scared, then tried to fight by grabbing the man's hair, but the man instead beat Ji-yoon to make her helpless. It didn't stop there. The man turned out to be together with 2 of his friends who participated in harassing Ji-yoon, taking turns beating her. One of them then took Ji-yoon's bag and ID card, for whatever purpose. After being satisfied with doing these lecherous acts, the 3 men then left Ji-yoon, who was lying weak and helpless just like that. As soon as the men who were harassing her left, Ji-yoon, still weak and somewhat shocked, went to the police station to report the rape she had just experienced. At the police station, Ji-yoon reports the incident to Detective Park, who doesn't seem wholehearted in carrying out his duties to serve people who need help. After hearing Ji-yoon's story, Detective Park instead accuses her of giving a false report. Ji-yoon then gave a strand of hair from one of the perpetrators that she had grabbed to Detective Park so that the police could look for clues about the identity of the perpetrators who harassed her. Because Detective Park's report was not taken seriously, Ji-yoon was disappointed and left. Not long after, Detective Kang Za-jim arrived at the police station and learned that a woman had reported her rape. Detective Park then told Detective Kang that the woman had given a false report and did not have any accurate evidence or clues. However, Detective Kang even scolded Detective Park because in reality the man was never serious in carrying out his duties as a police officer, so he often underestimated reports from victims or witnesses who tried to ask the police for help. Elsewhere, when Ji-yoon returns to her apartment, suddenly one of the men who abused her is already in her room. The man reasons that he wants to return Ji-yoon's bag and ID card. However, the man has an ulterior motive to beat Ji-yoon again. The man also tried to rape Ji-yoon. On the other hand, Chang-ba, who is at Won-jung's apartment, hears Ji-yoon's screams and thinks that Ji-yoon is chatting with a philanderer. Chang-ba then thinks that Ji-yoon is a cheap woman. Meanwhile, Ji-yoon, who felt pressed, then grabbed a certificate and hit the man's head to death. Moments later, Detective Kang and Detective Park came to Ji-yoon's residence to investigate the rape incident she had just experienced. Ji-yoon panicked because she had killed someone, then reasoned that she was not feeling well and asked the 2 policemen to get out of there immediately. To eliminate traces, she then mutilated the man's corpse who raped her into small pieces and stored it in the refrigerator so as not to emit a suspicious smell. The next day, Detective Kang returns to Ji-yoon and tries to convince her that she really wants to help her. However, Ji-yoon is already disappointed, then writes a sentence that she doesn't trust the police anymore on a piece of paper, and gives it to Detective Kang. That night, Ji-yoon intends to dispose of the man's body so as not to be caught by the police working on the case. Detective Park then visits Ji-yoon's residence when he is not in her apartment. Chang-ba, who happens to be on his way to Won-jung's place, then tells the police that Ji-yoon was chatting with a man in her room the previous night. Hearing this, Detective Park is even more convinced that Ji-yoon is only giving a false report to get money from the demands she submitted. While driving, Detective Park accidentally sees Ji-yoon, who is walking alone. The man rushes downstairs and goes straight to Ji-yoon, warning her about the false report and threatening to throw her in jail. Detective Park then tries to blackmail Ji-yoon by demanding some money in return. Because Ji-yoon has difficulty speaking, she then leaves in a hurry to leave Detective Park. Annoyed at being ignored, Detective Park chases after her and grabs her by the arm, causing Ji-yoon to drop the package she was carrying. Out of curiosity, Detective Park then checks the contents of the package Ji-yoon brought and is very surprised to find out that the package contains pieces of human bodies. The panicked Ji-yoon immediately ran away, but Detective Park didn't just let her run away. The man managed to catch Ji-yoon, then beat her until she fell to the ground. Ji-yoon, feeling cornered, notices that Detective Park's gun fell near her. Without thinking, she immediately grabbed the gun and shot Detective Park right in the heart, killing him. In the pouring rain, Ji-yoon then cries hysterically, not expecting that she is now a murderer. The next day, the police and forensic team were seen investigating Detective Park's death at the scene. They were surprised to find out that the shot from the perpetrator had very high accuracy because the shot hit his heart. The police also assumed that the perpetrator of Detective Park's murder was someone trained in shooting. Because Detective Park was known to be in debt and involved with gangsters, the police concluded that the gangsters were involved in his death. Meanwhile, Detective Kang convinces Ji-yoon that she really wants to help her. Detective Kang then asks Ji-yoon to identify the perpetrator of the rape from the database of criminals owned by the police force. At the same time, several gangster members who had been involved with Detective Park are being gathered at the police station for questioning regarding the policeman's death. When Ji-yoon accidentally sees the gangster members, she is very surprised to see the two men who raped her are among them, but due to lack of accurate evidence, the two men were eventually released. However, Ji-yoon doesn't just give up. She quietly followed her rapists as they headed to their hideout. The next day, Ji-yoon meets her boss and decides to resign from her job. On the way back to her apartment, she bumps into Chang-ba and notices that his hands are covered in blood. Ji-yoon immediately rushes to her best friend's residence and is very surprised to find Won-jong already lying in a state of serious injury due to being molested by Chang-ba. Ji-yoon immediately took Won-jong to the hospital. After that, Chang-ba, who was sitting alone, heard his car alarm suddenly go off. He rushes to the parking area to check it out and finds Ji-yoon there and deliberately tampering with the windshield of his car. Seeing this, Chang-ba immediately became furious and intended to beat Ji-yoon. But before he could touch her, Ji-yoon had already fired a shot right at his head, killing him. When the police investigated the scene the next day, they found the same bullet as the one that killed Detective Park some time ago. The police also assumed that the perpetrator of Chang-ba's murder is the one who killed Detective Park. However, the police have not been able to find a connection between Detective Park and Chang-ba that caused the two to be killed. Detective Kang and her partner, Detective Kim, then try to find information from Won-jong, who is being treated at the hospital, regarding the case of her boyfriend's murder. Won-jong finally reveals that Chang-ba is a rude man and often beats her. Won-jong then tells him about her best friend, who is none other than Ji-yoon, to Detective Kang and her partner. Won-jong accidentally reveals that Ji-yoon used to be a very good shooting sports athlete. Hearing this, Detective Kim immediately assumed that Ji-yoon was the perpetrator of the murders of Detective Park and Chang-ba because of the very high accuracy of shooting, and Ji-yoon has experience as a professional shooter. However, Detective Kang doesn't necessarily believe this and insists on continuing the investigation regarding Ji-yoon. Meanwhile, Ji-yoon is stalking one of the rapists heading to his residence. When she was sure that no one else was there but herself and the perpetrator, she shot the man straight away without thinking. The man then begged for forgiveness so that Ji-yoon didn't kill him, but Ji-yoon ignored him and immediately executed the man. Not long after, the police immediately went to the crime scene and again found the same bullet as the bullet that killed Detective Park and Chang-ba. Meanwhile at the police station, Detective Kang looks very shocked when she finds out the results of the hair sample examination that Ji-yoon had given to identify the man who had raped her, who turned out to be the man who was the murder victim of the recent shooting. After knowing this, Detective Kang begins to believe that Ji-yoon is the one who killed the three men. She then sneaks into Ji-yoon's apartment to look for evidence. However, Ji-yoon, who had just arrived there, immediately beat her unconscious. When Detective Kang wakes up, she is tied up and Ji-yoon is standing in front of her, threatening to kill her. Detective Kang then reassures Ji-yoon by revealing that she had a younger sister who was also a rape victim and had difficulty speaking, just like her. That's the reason why she insists on helping Ji-yoon, because she knows exactly how it feels like for her to be a victim of abuse. After hearing this, Ji-yoon gave up on killing Detective Kang and left immediately. Shortly after Ji-yoon left, Detective Kim and the police who were investigating Ji-yoon's whereabouts came to her residence and rescued Detective Kang, who was being held there. Meanwhile, in another place, Ji-yoon, who already knew the whereabouts of the only survivor of the rape, then came to the place and shot the man in the leg. However, Detective Kang and the police can also track down Ji-yoon's whereabouts, so they arrive there just before she executes the male rapist. Detective Kang tries to persuade Ji-yoon to stop her revenge. Having no hope of living again after all the murders she has committed for revenge, Ji-yoon intends to kill herself by shooting herself in the head. However, Detective Kang tries to convince Ji-yoon to stay alive, until she finally complies with Detective Kang and drops the gun. While crying with tears in her eyes, Ji-yoon walks slowly towards Detective Kang. But then, the rapist picked up Ji-yoon's gun on the floor and shot her right in the head. Seeing this, Detective Kang immediately became furious and shot the male perpetrator of the rape. A few days later, Won-jong, who has recovered from her injuries, is now back at her apartment. She is seen opening a letter from Ji-yoon, where in the letter it is stated that Ji-yoon really hopes Won-jong can live more and happier lives in the future. She also says that Won-jong is the only person she loves the most in this world after her parents died, and gives her some money. Won-jong was moved to tears after reading Ji-yoon's letter, knowing that her one and only best friend had really loved and cared for her all this time. Despite their fatal injuries, Ji-yoon and the male rapist apparently survived, even though both of them were in critical condition. Detective Kang, who was in the hospital cafeteria to calm herself down, overheard a conversation between the nurses who said that Ji-yoon's hopes of surviving were very slim. Hence, the doctor decided to donate Ji-yoon's heart to the perpetrator of the rape after she died. Hearing this, Detective Kang immediately entered the room where Ji-yoon and the rapist were being treated and locked the room. Detective Kang intends to remove the oxygen cylinder belonging to the man who did the rape. But then, she gave up on her intention, preferring to remove Ji-yoon's oxygen cylinder instead. This then makes Ji-yoon difficult to breathe and dies instantly. After making this tough decision, Detective Kang cries in frustration, hoping that it is the best decision because if Ji-yoon is allowed to live, she will surely suffer for the rest of her life because people will not be fair to her. However, Detective Kang also won't let the rapists get a heart donor from Ji-yoon, after all the depraved treatment he's done, so they all deserve to die. The moral of this film is that revenge will only bring misery to anyone, especially the perpetrators who will live in hatred for a lifetime. However, in this film, we are also shown the close friendship between Ji-yoon and Won-jong. Won-jong is the only person who cares for Ji-yoon after her parents died. Ji-yoon is willing to do anything, including committing murder, to save her from her abusive boyfriend. Although in the end Ji-yoon died, but she had saved her best friend and fought to get justice for all the depraved treatment she experienced.